In today's long-awaited video, I'm going to be breaking down the 4-step hiring system that saves businesses between 100 and 500k per year. It's the same system that's been leveraged by over 130 businesses that have collectively saved over $25 million in the last 4 years. It's been leveraged by agencies, coaches, recruitment businesses, real estate companies, e-commerce brands, private members groups, restaurant chains, SaaS platforms. But before I get into the specific system, I wanted to talk about the hidden costs of leveraging a poor hiring system. The obvious one is the cost of mishires. So in this scenario, we're going to be basing this on a business doing $2 million a year with a 60% year-on-year growth. Now the typical cost per bad hire, mid-level, is 30 to 50% of the annual salary. So if the average salary is 70k, the real cost of a mishire is $21,000 to $35,000. Now at this stage, even 2 bad hires a year will cost your business $42,000 to $70,000 in direct losses. And that's not including delays, team drag, or replacement time. But here are the 3 next hidden costs that you probably haven't considered. The first is momentum. If poor hiring slows execution enough to reduce growth from 60 to 45%, which it can easily do, a business at $2 million a year would be expected to do $3.2 million in the next year with a 60% growth rate. But at a 45% growth rate, they would only do $2.9 million a year, which means that they've lost $300,000 a year in growth as a result. And the harsh truth is that if they don't fix the hiring system now, that loss will compound year after year. Then we look at profitability. Now, if we're going to be very conservative, let's say that this business doing $2 million a year makes a 20% net margin. That's $400,000 in profit. Inefficient hires reducing margins by just 5% would result in the new margin being just 15% of the 400k, meaning that they would profit $300,000, which is $100,000 profit erosion. And the worst thing is that most founders don't even notice where this money is leaking. Then we've got the opportunity cost, which is the real kicker. If a founder's time is worth conservatively $300 an hour and poor hires consume 10 extra hours a week of their time in problem solving, firefighting, escalating protocols, that's $150,000 a year in lost founder leverage. That's time they could have been spending strategizing or building partnerships or run growth plays that ultimately never happen. So the total cost for a business doing $2 million a year, making 2 or more bad hires, leveraging a poor system, is realistically around $592,000. Now, depending on where you're at, that number could be less, it could be more. But I bet you it's a damn sight more than you thought it was. So, if you're a founder who is burning profits with no idea where your money is actually going, you're overpaying for growth that leaves you feeling unsatisfied, maybe you're stuck in a cycle of hiring and firing, making you feel deflated, or you're unable to scale past a current revenue ceiling, chances are your system for hiring is the cause. Do you know the difference between businesses that hit $10 million and those that get stuck at 1 to 2 million? It's belief. And the biggest capacitor of belief in your business is the people around you. Imagine you have a team of 7, and out of the 7, 3 of them do not instill you with the same level of belief as the rest of them. Maybe they're bad apples. That's going to hinder your capacity for belief in the team, which in turn will have a knock-on effect with how you carry yourself in the business, versus if you have a team of 7 A players, 7 killers, all firing at the same level. Just think about the difference in your mentality and how you carry yourself into everything you do if you know your support system won't fail you. See, your belief is based on the confidence you have that you can achieve a certain outcome. And for all business owners, their confidence around growth is directly impacted by their systems. You've probably got a predictable client acquisition system. You know exactly how much money is on the table for your taking. All you've got to do is take it. However, most businesses don't have a predictable system for hiring. So there could be millions on the table, but they don't have the systems in place to be able to actually grab it. And this is why they cannot scale beyond a certain point, because the quality of their system for attracting and hiring top talent doesn't give them enough belief that they can scale over the next 6 to 12 months with confidence. And as a result, due to this silent killer, their whole life is impacted. Without realizing it, they will make decisions based on a current reality, not a future perceived reality. They will miss opportunities that they could have taken easily, set their expectations well below what's possible, and take on workload themselves out of quiet frustration, which leads the founder to face burnout, unnecessary stress, cycles of growth and decline, constant comparison with their peers, and feeling like their goals will always run away from them, which ultimately throws them into a cycle of fear, doubt, and anxiety about their future. And this is exactly the reason that only 1% of businesses ever scale past $10 million. See, hiring isn't just about increasing capacity. It's about installing a belief system that will allow you to actually get to the next level. So, what is the 4 stages of the proven hiring system that saves founders $100 to $500K a year in costs, but also makes them incredibly more profitable and installs a belief layer in their business that allows them to push past all previous revenue ceilings? Well, the first stage, and arguably the most important, is how to diagnose who to hire. Then we have how to build a killer job spec, followed by how to attract more applicants than you need, and finally, how to filter out the best fit. Failed diagnostics is the leading cause of mishires. And what do I mean by this? Well, often founders will hire based on a limited perception of the cause of problems. The founder has a bias based on how they see the business. But the problem is, if they have a leadership layer and a ton of employees, then the true reality of the business, the true data that points to the problems, never makes it back up to the founder with clarity. So the founder will hire reactively, often prematurely, which leads to a hire they make underperforming. They might have hired a great person, but at a bad time. And as a result, the founder fires them and blames the hire. Now, if we were to go about correcting the diagnostics in the business, what we would need to do is actually identify the company problem and remove the founder bias by gaining the company perception of the cause of the problems. And we do this by gathering data from every single entity in the business. We aggregate that data, and then we actually are able to diagnose the true nature of the bottleneck in the business, which means the founder can hire proactively and make a calculated hire. And as a result, the hire performs because we've hired a good person at the right time for the right role. And then, of course, the founder's happy. And ironically, they again blame the hire. The next stage is to build a killer job spec. And this is where most businesses get it wrong. I always say half-arsed job spec equals half-arsed candidates. The usual job spec that we see, which never performs, is a role overview followed by the experience required, followed by the responsibilities of the role, followed by the tools they need to be familiar with. How uninspiring is that? Versus the optimal job spec. It starts with a brand overview. It sells the role to the applicant before they've even looked at the job description. It tells them what you do, who you do it for, and what sets you apart, inciting excitement in the people applying. Then it gives an overview of the role so they know what they're getting themselves into, followed by what success actually looks like. If they know what the deliverables of the role are and what you perceive to be success, they can align themselves so much better than if you miss this step. Then it goes on to talk about the responsibilities and the experience required. And finally, it ends with what a not good fit candidate would look like. See, the human brain is programmed to look for the negative. So by including a section of who wouldn't be a good fit, it allows people to audit themselves for the role, which means you get better quality applicants, more qualified for the position by adding this extra golden nugget in your job spec. Now we've got a killer job spec. We need to attract more applicants than we need for the role because the laws of probability state that the more applicants we get, the more chance we have of hiring our next employee of the month. And most founders, most businesses will leverage a very limited approach to advertising the role. They will post on LinkedIn, maybe run a LinkedIn job ad, post a social media story, and then ask for referrals of people they know, which gets them a limited talent pool. And usually they have to pick out of a bad bunch. But But if we leverage a multi-channel approach, I'm talking LinkedIn, social media stories, referrals, Facebook groups, TikTok Live, paid ads, local banners, affiliates, job boards, that 35 applicants has just turned into 455. And now we have a high volume of qualified applicants for the role. It's just a case of filtering them down to the best candidates. And to do this, we leverage an AI-powered filter system. A human being manages it, and they leverage AI to help qualify candidate CVs, LinkedIn profiles, and video introductions at scale, making sure that no candidate and no stone is left unturned. See, most founders skip crucial steps in this vetting process because they simply don't have the time. And what they do is they miss key details and they overlook great talent. So once we filter down the applicants based on their CV, video introduction, and their LinkedIn profile, we then put them through a functional skills test to test their attitude towards their role and the willingness they have in order to work for you. Following that, they go through 2 stages of interviews, one for aptitude and one for attitude. And throughout this whole process, we're leveraging an AI scoring system that builds a hierarchy of the best candidates with an allocated score based on their compatibility with the role, which by the end of the process clearly builds a list of the best to the worst candidates. And all you have to do is start from the top and work your way down until you found the one. Now, why I said it's important not to skip steps. Key information gets missed, and this is a perfect scenario. My client Theo here was delivered a set of candidates. Now, with every candidate that we supply to our clients, we provide them with an executive summary from ourselves, as well as a CV, a video introduction, a trial task, and a personality test. Now, you'll notice in our job spec, or our summary, should I say, we mention their experience supporting founders in e-commerce, SaaS, education, etc. But Theo's message said, how are these summaries created? Based on what info? If I compare this CV and video intro, there's no mention of e-commerce or Shopify experience. Because what Theo did is he went straight to the CV and he was looking for the key words, which was e-commerce. Now, if he'd have done his due diligence properly, which wasn't his fault of his own because he's a busy man and he has things to do, hence why we do this for our clients, he would have clicked onto the employer name and realized that they were an e-commerce brand. But because he didn't have the time to do that, he quickly scanned the CV, didn't see the word e-commerce, and he would have, if it wasn't for us, ruled out a very strong fit candidate. And the amount of talent that goes unhired as a result of this is mind-blowing, because founders simply don't have enough time to do the correct due diligence to ensure they have all the information to make the right decision on hires. So if you don't skip a step, there is no way information like this could get missed, and it will mean that you result in a better talent pool by the end of the process. And this system fills roles with killer hires in 7 to 14 days without fail. In fact, we've hired same day for some of our clients leveraging this specific system. Like Paul came to us with a serious problem. He had become so bloated when scaling that his margins had diminished drastically. His cost to scale ratio meant that he had to spend way too much money on growth, resulting in lost profit, added stress, reduced mental bandwidth. But the worst part was that Paul was also seriously overspending on his team. This system not only attracts top talent and vets them at scale, but it also helps you identify A players in strategic locations that help you keep your profits at a maximum. See, Paul had to pay local salaries, national insurance contributions, PAYE, pensions, plus office space and equipment, and even coffees and lunch and other expenses that add up for his existing team. And the reality was that 50% of Paul's team was costing him way more than it should have been. And as a result of this, Paul had unknowingly impacted his belief about how far he could take his business. He did this by losing profit margin, hiring and firing talent regularly, limiting himself to a certain location, and creating a system where growth felt expensive and like hard work. Think about what that does to your belief system. If you're not making as much profit as you'd like, and you're hiring and firing all the time, and you feel limited, and growth feels expensive, that will chip away at your belief system over time, and it will discourage you, and you will lose passion and motivation for what you're doing. So Paul came to us, and we fixed it. We installed the system within 30 days. And then over the next 12 months, Paul had reduced his local team size by 50% and replaced key roles with killer remote professionals. His cost to scale ratio decreased drastically. He now saves £100,000 in annual costs, and in his words, his profits have grown an unquantifiable amount. But the most important thing is now Paul has seen a significant uplift in his life because he's focused on growth and not problems. He's clear on who and how he'll hire next, and he's not gambling his payroll on a poor hiring system. And he's spending more time doing what he enjoys, not being dragged into the business to do the things that he shouldn't be. And this was all because he installed the 9-figure flow system. And it was the same for Joe. Joe owns 3 of the largest agencies in the UK, and he has a team of over 100 people across the businesses. So when the UK increased national insurance rate, the impact hit hard because all of his staff were local. Now, a single change impacted profitability drastically for Joe's businesses, and he needed a solution that would allow him to maintain his previous financial leverage. See, this isn't just about having more money so you can live a better life. Maintaining profits for Joe meant business longevity, team security, increased leverage, more agility, a stronger cash position, better decision making under pressure, strategic optionality, reduced founder stress, freedom to invest and not just survive. Joe had 2 choices: absorb the hit and keep things as they were, risking all the above, or take action to protect what he'd worked so hard to build. And of course, he chose the latter. And within 12 months, we built Joe a system that won him back over £100,000 a year in extra profit. And now Joe has a predictable system for ensuring profitability, no more unnecessary costs, more confidence in his next moves, no uncertainty, a competitive edge in the market. He's never going to be outpaced by his competition, and he's retained his freedom. He hasn't had to sacrifice his lifestyle to accommodate his business. And it was the same with Luke. Within 6 months, Luke had hired 5 offshore killers for his team, and this meant that his cost to scale ratio decreased drastically. He saved 7.5k a month in salary costs, and his profits have grown substantially. And for Luke, he's made insane progress. He's now able to see a brighter future for his agency, and he's not limited by silent restraints. He's clear on who and how he'll hire next, and he's paying himself a better salary. Or Eldon. We're not just talking about offshore hires. Eldon was able to hire some of the world's best talent. For his $25 million a year business, we placed a chief of staff from a $16 billion company, or an operations head who launched one of the world's largest cruise ships, all leveraging this same system. So no matter what level of hire you need to make, this system can facilitate it. And aside from those 4, over 130 businesses we've completely transformed with the 9-figure flow system. And if you'd like to hear it from them and not just me, then make sure to go to my YouTube at the 9-figure flow, and you can hear my case study and testimonial videos with these clients. Check out my Instagram at Jack Robson and my LinkedIn at Jack Robson too. But the reality here is, to do this process manually, that whole process I showed you, the 4 stages, per role would take one person an average of 1 to 2 months. And that's why leveraging a system like ours cuts that time by 70 to 90%. So, if you have a need to hire, if you are bleeding profits on expensive teams, if you are unable to scale because of hidden constraints or limited belief, and you feel like the people around you are the cause, and you want to solve this problem with 100% guaranteed success, then you can go to the link in the description and book in a time to apply to work one-to-one with me and my team, where we will install this system for you and help you break past all future plateaus, guaranteed, or you don't pay. I look forward to seeing you on the call, and good luck with the system.